Welcome back to another episode of Raul's World of Synths. I am Raul. Today we're going to be going into the last segment of the Doepfer A137-2 wave multiplier right here. For this last segment, I thought we would do a couple of other just odds and ends of processing, but I thought we'd bring it back to the original purpose of this module, which was to kind of fatten up the sound of your one VCO and make it sound like 5 VCOs. So I thought that would be a good place for us to start before we jump into the actual demonstration part of the modulation stuff. So let's go ahead and get that patch going. And I may be going a little faster than normal just because we have a lot of ground to cover and I want to make sure I get it in. So this last segment I will probably break into 2 parts, just so you know, and you're not left hanging or anything like that. So we always start, if you've been watching any of these demos, by taking our bass waveform, and I'm going to choose triangle wave. And if you've been watching, you'll know why I'm choosing that, because it kind of had the best results visually over at the oscilloscope. So I'm going to take that triangle wave and pop it into the top section of my multiples over here, piping in. And if you look at our oscilloscope, there's our triangle wave. If I vary the octaves, you can see over at the oscilloscope that's changed. And if I go higher, it changes. Okay, so you're getting a basic idea of what's going on there. And now this signal is also being copied here at the green cable, and that's actually going over to the oscilloscope that you're looking at. But there is also a copy in that second multiple output right there. So I'm going to take that and patch it over to our input of our A137-2 right here. There we go. And now I'm going to take that out so we can put it over to our oscilloscope as well, so we can see it. Not actually listening to it yet, but we will hear in a moment. So taking the output and then going over into this lower section of our multiples right there. And there you can see is our awesome little waveform. So now if I move my wave multiplier control over here, you can see at the oscilloscope that it's moving up and down. Okay. Now we were kind of working with some notes last time. I did kind of change the notes up. And you'll also notice down at the VCA, we're already hearing the triangle wave, which I have patched right in here. But we don't have the second input going yet, which is going to be, of course, our A137 right here. So let me get that set up, and then we should be able to go a little further. So I'm taking the bottom section over here, taking an output from there. There we go. And then going right into the second input of our VCA. Now we have both waveforms kind of mixed together. I can kind of get just a general balance. Now if you wanted to hear just the triangle by itself, it's like that. But then together you get this kind of big beefy kind of sound. And if I bring it down 1 octave, kind of be a little more prominent. Let me bring down the second one. So there's our lower octave. You can hear that. If I bring it up, this kind of nice, edgy kind of sound. Now it's not that noticeable, which is why we were kind of working with notes last time. Over here in my sequencer, I have some notes kind of set up, and I did change these up, so don't be surprised when you hear different notes. Over at our quantizer, we have the input going here. I already patched that just for time's sake. Take the output from there, and then go up into our VCO, and we should start to hear some notes playing. And you can even see that kind of reflecting over there at the oscilloscope. Looks pretty cool. So if I start to move, my controls over here, like the first manual control. And this is nothing new. We kind of went into this into pretty much a lot of depth in the last couple of segments. Only difference is now, down at our VCA, we're actually mixing the 2 signals together to kind of get that nice big beefy sound. Now there's one last thing that I wanted to do. If you look over in this bottom section, you can see there's a blue cable right here, right there. These are my triggers for my A155 over here. So I'm taking those out, and I'm going over into this section over here to my ADSR, and I'm triggering this envelope. So I'm going to take that envelope and shape my VCA with it. I'm just going to patch it right there. I'm going to actually bring my VCA gain down. So that's going to be our basic sound right there. Let me bring up the release just a little bit, just for taste. And then now we can just kind of experiment, so I can, adjust my manual settings over here on my shift units until I find a nice, good balance that I like. I kind of like that one, so I'm going to stick with that. And now we're going to kind of move on to the kind of modulation part, because we have the basic setup here, the patch. And I actually got a very good suggestion from one of our viewers out there, Mr. Arpsalina, via YouTube. He actually suggested that we use a module, which I do have in my sort of arsenal over here, the A143-3 Quad LFO. So I actually rearranged my case a little bit to kind of get this guy involved. We're going to be using a few of these waveforms to sort of modulate the inputs of our A137-2. So let me get that patch set up, and then you can kind of make your own judgments with that. So I'm going to use triangle waves, because when I was playing around, that probably had the best effect. Pulse waves over here are okay, but they only really go on, off, on, off. So really we won't see a very pronounced effect with that, but I found kind of different varying levels of triangles is going to give us the best effect. So let me patch that top one again and go into the first input of our A137. Now if you look over at the oscilloscope, you can see a nice little dancing waveform happening. And I can adjust the rate of our LFO right here. If I want it to go a little slower, you can see the movement is now reflecting at the oscilloscope just a little bit slower. Okay, so now I'm going to take the second triangle wave, and these are all in low frequency mode, by the way, in case you're wondering. And I'm just going to go, let's start at number 4 now. I'm going to go into number 4. Now you can see that this one, well, hopefully you can see, that rate's going a little different. If you want to count that out, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you can see that jump kind of occur rhythmically. Now I don't really like the timing, so let me see if I can adjust that just a little bit. Yeah, that's better. And now let's get another one going. So I'm going to take this triangle wave, go up into CV number 2. And it's kind of hard to see the movement there. So what I might do is just turn down input number 1, input number 4, just so I can see the movement on number 2. And I don't really see a lot happening, so let me bring up the CV input. Still not a lot happening. So actually it's going really, really slow, so let me bring up the rate just a little bit. And from this angle, I know it's hard to see the rate there, but let me take this out. And there it's at the top, and then going back down. But you can also hear it there as well. Let's bring in the CV from number 1. Number 4 again. Kind of an interesting little sound. And now let's take the last triangle wave and just go into CV3. I'm going to bring the CV all the way up this time. And then kind of adjust that third one there. And let me do something a little pronounced, that way we can actually hear it. Okay, now that I can tell where it's at, now let me just dial it down just a little bit. And you can see quite a bit of movement over there at the oscilloscope. Now, in general, when you're doing this on your own, you won't necessarily be watching your oscilloscope when you're doing this. And probably when you actually record, you're going to see something like this. You're going to see your waveform, and you won't actually know what's going on in there. So I kind of like that we're actually delving in, sort of like going to the center of the earth or something here, into the very small parts of the waveform there. Right there we have, let's see, like a cycle, maybe almost a cycle and a half right there. Just so you can kind of visualize what's actually happening as it's multiplying those frequencies and then being mixed back in together with it. So that's kind of dynamically happening in real time. Cool. So I think this is going to give us a good place to sort of pause before we go into the next sort of demonstration. And the next one will kind of be the last one that we do. So this was part one with the Quad LFO. And then the next one we're kind of jump in with our friend the A149 over here and hear a few more interesting things. So stay tuned for that and keep on patching out there.